Good Shabbos, this is Parshat Ki Tavo, entitled The Illusion of Working the Land. I want to talk to you about a beautiful moving ceremony and what it might mean. So what we have described in the Midrash is that the farmer used to get up in the morning and excitedly go into his fields and his vineyards and look for the first fruit. And when he saw something, he would put a ribbon around it and declare, this is the Bikurim, this is for the first fruits. And they would gather, all the farmers in Israel would gather their first fruits and go on this beautiful ceremony. They would carry the baskets on their shoulders and they would decorate even their animals with crowns, and people would be playing flutes and all kinds of music, and they'd march to Jerusalem. And as they approached Jerusalem, the artisans of Jerusalem would say, welcome our brothers in peace. And even the king themselves would approach people and take the basket off the farmer's shoulder and put it on his own shoulder. And everybody would then march with them in a big, beautiful ceremony into the temple of Jerusalem. And when they got there, they said a prayer that's very familiar to us today. It is the centerpiece of what we say on the Pesach Haggadah, Arami Ovid Avi. In other words, they stood there and they say, our history is before us. We will recall briefly that we had, humble antecedents back when our great-great-grandfather Jacob had married the two sisters of Lavan and was cheated, and he had to survive that and eventually make his way into Egypt, and there we were slaves, and then we were freed, and we were in the desert for 40 years, and we finally made our way to Israel. We had to work the land ourselves, and we had to work hard. And now we get that fruit, and we know that it's the same principle as in the desert. It's the same principle throughout time. This is all a gift from God. God is sustaining us. That is really the essence of their message. And so they put everything in perspective. We know how we got here. We know how the fruits of our labor are in our hands now, but we know where it comes from, and they brought it there, and then something amazing happened. They actually had the audacity to say, we're not moving here until we get a blessing from God, and a heavenly voice would come down and say, not only is your produce, the work of your land blessed this year, but even next year. In other words, it's going to be an illusion what you do next year. You're going to work the land, and you're going to hire mules, and you're going to hire people to work the land, and I promise you already that you're going to be coming next year with the same bountiful produce. How could that be? So the answer, of course, is because God is beyond time and space, and really the message is a very important message for us today, is that it all comes from God. And if you wonder, do we have anything equivalent today where we can get some kind of instant gratification, an instant message from God saying, don't worry, it's all going to work out fine. So the closest we can get is at least this perception, right? I said this, we're talking about the illusion of working the land. If we can break through the illusion, and we know that it's not at the end of the year a bigger paycheck if we worked harder, and it's a blessing from God, and how the stock market will do and how our net worth will look, it's all comes from God. And yes, we can't sit on the couch and say, just make it happen. We need to do our part. We need to do our hishtadlut. But at the end of the day, if we can break through that illusion that we all live in, especially in the Western world, that you got to work hard to make money. If we can know that it all comes from God, then at least we are approaching that amazing level that they reached at the time when the Jewish farmers would bring their produce in. It's amazing that this kind of a miracle happened every year, that they got word from God that this blessing that they were bringing in baskets, God was saying the same thing will happen to next year. So since the new year is coming, I want to wish you a blessing for next year. And we should only try to reach this great level of awareness and break through the illusions.